Hello, I'm Adam. Welcome to my model aircraft channel. In this video I'm going to make some modifications to my Eachine Wizard X220. On this channel I'm sharing my experiences of being a newbie in the world of model aircraft, and this video is a result of that. It follows up on my first video on this channel where I set up all the hardware for my Wizard X220 ARF kit with the Flysky I6X B receiver. While everything worked okay after that video, there were a few things that I thought could be better. If you haven't seen my initial hardware setup video, I will link it at the end of this video. So in this video I will make some modifications to my quadcopter to try and improve the experience of using it. As usual, I will link all the hardware I feature in this video in the description below, just in case you are interested in getting any of it for yourself. I'm not reviewing any of this equipment, and being a newbie means that I'm not in a position to tell you whether it's good or bad, only that I'm using it. The links are affiliate links, however, so using them to purchase anything will not cost you anything, but it will help me keep the channel going. First, I'm going to look at battery voltage monitoring. I knew that the X6B receiver could also send battery telemetry back to the I6X transmitter, so the battery voltage can be monitored on the screen. However, after setting up my transmitter and receiver, I noticed the voltage was not being displayed. I wasn't sure whether the iBus connection alone would allow the flight controller to tell the receiver what the battery voltage was if I connected up the vbat. Unfortunately, it doesn't. On the underside of the receiver, here, there's another JST SH 3-pin connector. This is actually for connecting to the battery voltage. It's got 3 pins, but the middle pin is the positive and the 2 outer pins are ground. So I'm going to connect that to battery voltage using another 3-pin JST connector. Since there are 2 grounds and only one of them needs connecting, I've actually removed one of the cables. I'll remove the flight controller. And connect this to the same place at the front of the power distribution board that I connected vbat to the flight controller. Now the quadcopter's battery voltage can be seen on the screen. I also didn't like the position of my buzzer here, which I mounted directly onto the flight controller. So what I'm going to do is remove that and attach it via some wires so I can strap it down to this bottom plate. For anyone who watched my first video on the hardware setup for my Eachine Wizard, I know that I velcroed my receiver underneath the top plate and used cable ties with some heat shrink to hold the antenna above the aircraft. Now this does work okay, but I'm not particularly happy with it for a couple of reasons. One, especially since I'm adding the extra cable in for the voltage, there's now 2 cables in here. So if I want to remove the top plate, I have to unplug 2 cables from it, which is a bit of a faff. Second reason is, if I want to mount a camera on the front, then they're taking quite a lot of space on the back where the battery could move further back in order to help balance the quad and the centre of gravity of the quad, because obviously a camera is quite heavy. And the third reason is because the cables, the antenna cables, come out in front of the cable ties. If the battery moves, it can tug on these quite a bit. And what I'm finding is that it's actually quite easily popping these little connectors off the receiver, which isn't very good. Since the receiver is designed with these holes in order to put it on a standard 30mm stack, I'm going to try and put it on top of my flight controller. But the problem is these holes are not big enough. So I need to ream these out with a 3mm drill in order to fit on the standoffs on the stack. And in terms of the antennas, I'm going to move them from here, and I'm going to take a cube from Mr. Steel and use cable ties to attach them to the rear standoffs on the quad, so that one sticks out at the back and the other one sticks up like this. You probably can't tell, but I've now drilled out the 2 standoff holes. Now before I said they needed to be 3mm, I drilled them with 3mm and they still weren't actually big enough, so I've drilled them with 3.5mm and now they do fit over the standoffs that are used in the Wizard. So what I'm now going to do is remove the 2 nylon nuts that hold the flight controller onto the stack from the rear of the quad, and then I'm going to mount this receiver on top of that so that the antennas join on the back here to come out for the rear mounted antennas there. The Wizard doesn't come with any extra standoffs, so I'm going to use them from this kit here, which has the same size standoffs as the Wizard uses. First of all, I'm going to remove a piece of Velcro. With those 2 rear nuts removed, I'm going to fit the 2 new standoffs. Plug in the receiver. That's the vbat in and the I-bus in. I'm going to make sure that I've got the sockets for the antennas on the top so it's easy to get to them. Press it down off the stack and refit the original nylon nuts to hold it in place. So that's everything snugged down now, and that's in quite nice and tight. Okay, let's have a look at the antennas. First I need to remove the antennas from this heat shrink and then remove the cable ties from the top plate. These are the 2 rear standoffs from the frame, so I'm going to start by taking a cable tie for each, lining the 2 ends up like that, and then cable tying the cable tie to the standoff. Put one of these cable ties close to this end, making sure that the end of the cable tie doesn't go past the end of the standoff, because the top plate is going to go against that, or the bottom plate, depending on which side it's on. And put a second one lower down. Use a pair of pliers to get these nice and tight. And I'm going to snip these ends off. Right, so that's the basic idea. Now the antenna itself will attach to the trailing piece of cable tie. One will be sticking up and the frame will just bend the cable tie out of the way, slightly like that. The other one faces down and the cable tie needs to stick out backwards, so I need to bend this cable tie at 90 degrees. So I'm going to use a little bit of heat to slightly melt it and bend it to 90 degrees. Reattach the two rear standoffs to the base plate. As you can see, the bent cable tie is on the left side and the straight cable tie is sticking up on the right side. So now what I'm going to do is take the two antennas, reattach them to the receiver and run them down. Attach them to the cable ties on either side. I'll probably use a little bit of electrical tape to begin with, and then put some protective heat shrink over the top. That's it for this round of modifications. So just to recap, I removed the buzzer from the flight controller and put it on a pair of wires, which were now soldered where the buzzer originally was. And the buzzer is cable tied down to the bottom plate. I connected another 3-pin JST SH, that's a 1mm pitch cable, to the power distribution board to get the voltage from the battery, which fed into the receiver here so that it comes back to the transmitter, and you can see the voltage that remains in the battery. It is a 3-pin, but you only two of them actually ground, so I removed one of the extra ground cable and just used 2 cables. Then I removed the receiver from the top plate and removed the Velcro, drilled out the holes to 3.5mm to mount on the stack here, and then I've moved the antennas to be mounted on the rear standoffs of the frame, similar to the way that Mr. Steele does it.
Thanks for watching. My initial setup video is linked at the top of the screen here. If you like this or found it useful, please like and subscribe to get my future content. If you know of or prefer other methods of doing anything I featured in this video, please comment and help share the experience.